Back on TYT Sports, NFL playoffs, wild card weekend is right around the corner, so I needed to bring on a friend, somebody we haven't talked to in a while, but it's great to have him back on. It's Chris Liss. He's coming in live from somewhere in the world. I believe it is Lisbon, as he just mentioned to me. Chris, there's a lot of catching up to do, so I guess give us the 30-second take. How have your travels been? And I hope everyone's been following, at least still on RotoWire. You've still been writing there weekly. How's it going?
It's good, man. It used to be a 10-minute commute to the studio to hang out with you guys. Now it would be, about 12 hours. But I was in Berlin for 3 months. Did not get the visa extension, and then so we went to Lisbon, Portugal, as a plan B, and it's worked out great. We love it here.
Are you the only NFL fan? Because if you say football, they do not know what you're talking about.
Yeah, in the UK, there's some people who watch football, and maybe Germany, but I've never seen anyone in Portugal so far.
Yeah, you're like the smartest NFL mind in the entire country. Like, there's probably not even any competition.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
Yeah, sure. All right, so as always, when we have you out, we got to talk about beating the book. And if you check the rotowire.com, you can see in the NFL section, Chris Liss is beating the book for the NFL wildcard playoffs weekend is up. So I'm going to throw your predictions up there. I'm curious if this has changed at all since you posted the article. I believe it's element for Jacory number 17. It's the Liss predictions clip. And then we'll get into some fun numbers to run in terms of the betting this weekend. So, Jacory, when you get the chance, element number 17. You got the Texans 16-13, the Seahawks 27-13, the Steelers beating the Dolphins, heavily covering the spread, and the Packers just ever so slightly edging our New York Giants. We're going to save the Giants for the end.
I'm wrong about that.
Well, so I do too. I hope we're all wrong about that. I hope the Giants can pull out a victory. But we're going to save that for the end because we know we're going to get into that, and that's probably the best game of the weekend, at least on paper. All right, so some other fun elements to get to. NFL playoffs betting. Here's your spreads for the weekend. At Houston, they're giving 3.5 to Oakland without Derek Carr in the Conor Cook versus Brock Osweiler fireworks display. That will be the best damn football game you've ever seen. The Seahawks at home giving 8 to the Lions. Pittsburgh at home giving 10 to the Dolphins. And Green Bay giving a generous 4.5 to the New York Giants. I actually think that line should be lower. I thought it would be a field goal. All right, so let's move into some discussion about this. We'll make the Raiders and Texans ones pretty quick. My first question, Chris, is this the worst quarterback matchup in playoffs history?
Oh, definitely. It's one of the worst games. It would be a bad game for a regular season game. I mean, there's probably 20 to 25 teams that would be favored on a neutral field against the Raiders with this quarterback right now. And then, there's probably 20 teams that would be roughly equal with the Texans on a neutral field, given how bad Osweiler is. They lost J.J. Watt, obviously, for the season. Their D has still been pretty good. Mm-hmm. This is a bad game, even by, this is like your average Thursday night game, and it just happens to be in the playoffs.
So maybe I'm one of the only ones. I'm sure there's enough people somewhere in Vegas putting money on the Raiders, and it does scream a game that should finish 20-0 Texans. The Texans have no viable reason to lose this football game. But I just kind of want to go like a little bit contrarian because sometimes I feel like maybe it's a close enough game. I think you also have the Raiders with the points, though, correct?
Yeah, the line's 3.5, and the over-under's 36. 36 would be one of the lowest over-unders of the entire year. So when you look at 3.5 into 36, it's kind of like 5.5, 6 in a 50, right? It's a bigger portion of the spread, so it's bigger than it seems. These teams both kind of suck. I could just see this being sort of a war of attrition on the ground and turnovers from both teams. I just want the points.
That's what, to me, anytime I'm skeptical about a bad football game, I'll take the points. It just doesn't, it seems like the standard rule of thumb for sports gambling is, and especially in your case here, you're saying as a low-scoring game as it should be, we're looking at ground and pound, 40 carries per team, probably, if not more. I can't imagine Conor Cook's going to drop back even 25 times to pass the football. But who knows, maybe maybe a Dak Prescott-esque character will emerge.
Even Ben Mankiewicz is not going to be betting on this game. That's how bad this game is.
That's not true. I can tell you.
Let's not be ridiculous. No, I'm taking it too far.
This is Ben Mankiewicz, who once came to me and said I was doing so bad on NBA bets that I bet on a game with the total score being even. Right. That's a crapshoot. There's no numbers to even side with in terms of that being a regular bet. All right, on to the games that at least have some more substance to them. So we have a couple of things from scoresandodds.com, and I kind of chopped up, which is for the Saturday games. To give you an idea, and just so people kind of follow along, the total number On top there is the total over-under for the score. The number on bottom is the point spread. And on the side, you're looking at how many people, the percentage of the country, at least according to scoresandodds.com, have money on a specific team with the spread. So 63% have the Texans, giving 3.5. Not surprising. The one I do find a little more surprising is maybe people were scared of the spread with the Lions. I don't think people underestimating how good the Seahawks are at home. And they are not the team that showed up and lost 31-3 to the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau. At home, they are different, even without Earl Thomas. What are your thoughts towards this game?
Yeah, people are off the Seahawks because they barely beat the Niners in a game that had, seeding implications that were important for them.
Mm-hmm.
And they lost to the Cardinals. They blew out the Rams, but anybody could blow out the Rams. And they just have, and then they got blown out by Green Bay. So the last month, they haven't looked like themselves. They're missing Earl Thomas, and that seems to be a big factor. Their D is just not that good. It's just not what it was. So 8 points is kind of a big line in the playoffs if you're not playing that well. But Matthew Stafford has terrible splits against good teams. Now, we'll see if Seattle's defense isn't that good. Maybe he'll do okay. But when Stafford faces good defenses, especially on the road, I mean, every quarterback gets hurt by that, but he falls apart. He does so much damage against crappy opponents. So I think in Seattle, a night game where I don't know if it means anything, they tend to play even better. Mm-hmm. And Stafford, the way he plays against good defenses and the fact that his finger may still be an issue, no Theo Riddick, I have Seattle covering.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Stafford finger is definitely, it's lingering a bit. It seems like a nagging injury. And this might be a little bit of a blow towards Matt Stafford. He doesn't seem like he has that Derek Carr toughness in terms of like breaking a pinky and still putting up decent numbers.
Hey, let's not. When Derek Carr broke his pinky, he fumbled the ball and ran in the other direction. He didn't even try to recover the fumble. So I wouldn't say Derek Carr is tougher than Matt Stafford.
Not tougher than Matt Stafford? I think he was about to play with a broken.
They're both average toughness.
On a level playing field, two of them with broken legs. Who plays the best?
Right, exactly. That would be a real man would play. If Derek Carr were a real man, he'd play with the broken leg.
Well, if he was Ben Roethlisberger, who tore his meniscus and then played 7 days later.
Ben Roethlisberger is what we call our contemporary ancestor, so it's not really fair to group him with the others.
All right, speaking of the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Miami Dolphins, it's been a long time since the Dolphins have been in the playoffs, and at one point, we were clamoring for their head coach and their management to be fired, and now they railed off a couple of straight victories, and they're back at it. Sunday's games will go to that same card for scores and odds. This is element number 16, Jacory, when you throw to it. 55% are taking the points. It's in Pittsburgh. This is the team that I put money on, the Pittsburgh Steelers, because they were 8-1 when I was in Vegas this past weekend, so I put some money down on it for the Pittsburgh Steelers to win the Super Bowl. And my sole reasoning is, Chris, I know you won't be either. Would you be surprised if the Pittsburgh Steelers win the Super Bowl this year?
Yes, I would.
You would? No, you wouldn't. You've seen the narrative. You've seen it happen.
I've seen teams go on a run in the playoffs like the Giants and the Ravens that were in way worse shape than the Steelers are now, or way longer odds.
Correct.
And the Steelers have basically almost a bye home game against Matt Moore. That's a very good setup.
Yep.
But the Steelers have been awful on the road this year. They've been really bad, and this goes back to 2014. Roethlisberger's home run splits, and I don't know why, are terrible. And I just don't see him getting it done in New England. Could he? Yes, he could. Of course it could happen. Stranger things have happened. If they won in New England, then I would think that they could win the Super Bowl. I don't even think they could buy the Chiefs. If they, I think that will be a tough battle for them on the road also. But even if they did get by the Chiefs, I don't think they could buy the Pats. If they made it to the Super Bowl, sure, they could beat anybody, but I don't see it.
Yeah, but it's no fun to have the Pats back in the Super Bowl unless it's against
nobody wants it.
Unless it's against the Giants, then I'm more than ready.
You got Eli versus Eli's bitch for the third time. That would be a great matchup.
It's the best way to put it. By the way, if the Giants win the Super Bowl, with all your excitement and your understanding of criticizing Ben McAdoo, which I agree with almost in its entirety when you write your columns, would you buy and wear on this show the Benny with the good haircut T-shirt?
I would perhaps consider purchasing that item. It's hard because I want him to leave, and I think they're terrible with him. They were the 26th offense in the league, and that's what he's in charge of. He has zero responsibility for the defense that's carried them the whole year. Zero. That's Jerry Reese signing Olivier Vernon, signing Janoris Jenkins, who's been great, drafting Landon Collins, who's defensive player of the year. He's in that category. He's in that conversation. Jason Pierre-Paul coming back for 13 games before he got hurt again was huge, and they really need to get him back. But that was what's driven this team. Eli Apple's been a nice reserve corner. He's been hurt a little bit.
He's been a rookie. He's a rookie this year. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're deep in the secondary. This is a really good defense, and this is why they're there. McAdoo has screwed it up, but they've gotten just enough out of the offense, given how good the D is, to be where they are. Basically, a wild card game going on the road. It's not like they, have a bye or something like that. But they do. The Giants are a dangerous team. I mean, Eli's pretty bad, but does he have a 3 or 4 game run in him like he did those couple of years? He wasn't great then either. And Odell Beckham, to me, is a top 5 all-time receiver. And that is a big weapon that really nobody can guard.
Yeah, well, when I look at the numbers right now with Odell Beckham Jr., he's also a fun guy to talk about because he's such a polarizing player on and off the field. But when it comes to Odell Beckham Jr., I'm somebody who
Stop you there, Jason.
What's up?
Stop you there. Why would it be polarizing? I mean, because some douchebags in the media make something out of nothing.
Oh, no.
Has Odell Beckham, abused any women? Has Odell Beckham,
No. I mean polarizing in the way that on the field he's the most untouchable wide receiver in the game, and I think that the arguments for Antonio Brown are sound, but Odell Beckham Jr. has done everything that Brown has done and more, especially when it comes to yards after the catch. It's not like he's catching these balls 60 yards downfield. He's catching them 5 yards and running for 60. And then off the field, he's become almost like, and this is not a slight or a diss, Cam Newton-esque in the way that, unfortunately, the media crucifies him for everything he does when he just seems like he's a good-spirited guy who, likes to dance, likes to post on Instagram, likes to make out with the kicking net. I don't think there's any problem with it because he backs it up on the field.
Yeah, no, I think Cam is a fair comp. Cam is totally, good citizen, never does anything wrong.
Right.
Beckham's even, still even talks to the media, doesn't like run away, even though I don't care about that at all. I mean, he lost the Super Bowl, he's in a bad mood. I think Cam is a good comp in the sense that these guys are getting attacked for nothing, for doing nothing wrong.
Oh yeah, that's
and so it's pretty gross that there's even a discussion. I mean, he's the Giants' best player, and the biggest mistake McAdoo made this year was throwing him under the bus after the kicking net thing, which didn't even result in a penalty. And I know this segment's not about that, so I don't want to derail it entirely. But
no, you can.
This is the top 5. This is the top 5 all time type of receiver. And the difference between him and Antonio Brown, you pointed out after the catch, although Antonio Brown is also very dangerous after the catch, it's that he's got McAdoo holding them back, and he's got Eli holding him back, whereas Brown has Roethlisberger, who's a very good quarterback, at least at home, and Mike Tomlin, who is 100 times better coach than McAdoo and is aggressive and will call plays down the field more. So I think, Beckham is – I would take Beckham over Antonio Brown, and right now he's 5 years younger.
Did you Terry Bradshaw's comments about Mike Tomlin calling him a cheerleader and not that good of a head coach? Then you just look at his coaching record and you go, what the hell is Terry Bradshaw talking about?
Yeah, I don't think Tomlin is as good as, obviously Belichick's on his own plane. But I'd take Pete Carroll and John Harbaugh over him. But then I would take Tomlin in the next tier.
Yeah,
okay?
I think there's like 6 to 7 good to great head coaches in the NFL, and then there's 23 bad head coaches.
Right, and Tomlin's not one of the bad ones, right? He's there's the horrible ones, which is like 15 of them, right? And then Tomlin's above
most
that.
of them.
And his response to Terry Bradshaw was pretty funny. I don't know if you saw it, but it was.
He cited the.
It's on one of your tweets is when I saw it.
He cited like the '80s Cowboys who mentioned the story of how if you spotted Terry Bradshaw the C and the A, he couldn't spell cat. He's that dumb.
Right.
What a great comment. And coming from a Cowboy. And Tomlin's a Cowboys fan. That crushes me because I know for the both of us, like I grew up in a household where if the Giants won 2 games every year and they both came against the Cowboys, job's done, great season. That's all that matters.
Well, I guess you're happy this year then.
Of course. That's all that matters to me. That's also why I look at the Giants' run. So that's the last game, and I know we're running out of time here, but the Giants are getting 4.5 points. I'm not a genius when it comes to NFL sports betting. Most of mine comes down to the NBA, and that's what I think I know better. However, when I do see a line that says 4.5 points and at some points 5, according to how it's swinging, the Giants are getting – I know Aaron Rodgers is playing out of his mind, but could we please stop crediting the Packers for being an overall better football team than the Giants? Pound for pound, the Giants are a better team. Defensively, they're a far better team, and they have similar weapons. I don't think that the Packers should be favored by more than 2 or 3 points. Am I crazy in saying this?
That 4.5, 5 is not a big difference. It's not a common margin. And, they shut down Dak Prescott completely. Okay, they shut down Stafford completely. They shut down Cousins completely. But this is a different degree of difficulty that they're going to be dealing with. This is perhaps the greatest player of all time at his peak. Rodgers has gone 18 touchdowns, no picks in the last 7 games. He's, this is, of course, you take away the quarterback, the Giants are a much better team than the Packers, but Eli kind of sucks. I think Eli's not even top 15 right now.
No,
and
I agree with
Aaron
that.
Rodgers, I put him number 1. I'd vote for Matt Ryan for MVP because the body of work all year. But right now, give me one game, I'm taking Rodgers over Brady.
See, I can't vote Matt Ryan for MVP because their offensive line is right up there with what the Cowboys have been doing. And I get that the Packers have a great pass defense, but Aaron Rodgers had to come up and throw out his own coach's game plan. I think Aaron Rodgers and LeBron James have become into the same exact category. That every single year LeBron James is the MVP of the NBA, regardless what people believe, he is the best player on the court at all times. Well, you just said it yourself. Right now, there's no better player on the field than Aaron Rodgers. Therefore, how can you not be the most valuable player?
I would take Rodgers over anyone for one game, but I'll just throw one thing out at you, and hat tip to Dalton Del Don, my podcast co-host.
It's such a nice way to put
Matt
it.
Ryan. What's that?
It's such a nice way to refer to Dalton. Usually it's...
Oh, I'm throwing him with the bus usually. I know. Once in a while, I got to say something nice about him. Matt Ryan got 9.3 yards per attempt. I think that's the second most ever after Kurt Warner one year. And he did it against Football Outsiders, what they consider the number 1 hardest pass defense schedule in the NFL. I think that's case closed right there.
Well,
you have a historic per play production against the toughest schedule. I mean, that's all. What more can you do?
Yeah, I look, I love the number, and I can't even argue with it. It's that good of a number, and I give Dalton credit too for having that number, but I still think the Falcons are going to lose in the divisional playoff round, regardless who they face.
So. I agree. They could easily lose.
Yeah, easily. All right, so who's your Super Bowl? Just make it fun, and we'll probably have you back on, obviously, if we can next week for the divisional playoffs.
Sure.
But who do you think's going to make it to the Super Bowl this year?
Well, I mean, I'm going to say the Pats. I think it's easy, but I'm not going to be contrarian just to be contrarian. And then in the NFC, it's wide open, man. I think the Giants could do it, but I'm going to say Green Bay. I hate to say it.
Yeah,
I hope I'm, but I'm going to say Green Bay.
I actually believe whoever wins this wild card game will be in the Super Bowl.
Could be.
Could actually be. No disrespect to the Cowboys. I hate having to say it objectively. They're a very, very good football team. But if the Cowboys win the Super Bowl this year, I don't know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life because I'm going to have to
commit suicide. Then
that's it. I'll join you in Lisbon if there's room.
You could do that.
Because I can't be here during a Cowboy Nation parade and Jerry Jones and...
Fuck that.
Oh,